We're surrounded by so much social media these days. There truly is a platform for everyone. For me, however, it's always been YouTube. YouTube is a vast, one-of-a-kind platform, almost a sort of universe unto itself. Every single minute of the day, over 500 hours of footage is uploaded to the video sharing site. Just think about that. I mean, really think about it. Unfortunately, due to the sheer volume, the vast majority of videos that are uploaded to the platform go completely unseen by almost everyone. And for as much golden, great content that is uploaded, there's an equal amount of, well, something else. Something else entirely. And by the way, just for the record, I don't fall under the golden category myself. More like bronze, maybe. Anyway, as you can imagine, with that much raw footage uploaded every day, there's obviously going to be a whole litany of deep, dark, and disturbing rabbit holes for us to explore. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So join me as we become owlish and go poke our heads where they don't belong.
I was just kind of wondering if you wanted to play dolls.
On the face of it, the Jordan Long Show might come across as completely harmless. Just yet another strange, quirky YouTube channel in a veritable sea of them. Since all the way back in the year 2013, practically a lifetime ago by internet standards, this channel has been posting lo-fi videos of a man playing with dolls. Every single day without fail, this man would narrate conversations and act out various scenarios using his little friends. Upon first glance, this might come across as a bit odd, yes, but ultimately completely harmless, right? Well, the deeper you dive into the content on the channel, the more outright disturbing the situation becomes. These videos cover a whole array of different topics, often quite strange, but sometimes fully mundane as well. However, despite their topic, all of the videos boil down to essentially the exact same formula. A grown man using his doll collection to act out bizarre and often completely disconnected stories. And remember now, this man has been uploading daily for well over a decade. Just think about the sheer commitment that takes. And this alone already raises some serious red flags. I mean, what kind of a person would dedicate all of that time and effort to something so downright strange? But possibly, the far more important question is simply, why? Why even do this to begin with? And more importantly, why do it for so long? So, I think we've established that this behavior is indeed strange, but so far it seems fairly harmless, right? Well, as you continue to delve deeper into the channel, you begin to notice something. The titles of the various videos begin to take on an almost disquieting tone. Titles such as, quote, "I love having sex," leave you completely confused and wondering just what in the hell is really going on here. The videos themselves are straightforward enough, just a man utilizing his doll collection to act out and discuss the video's topic in prolonged, rambling conversations. However, between the borderline disturbing consistency and out there subject matter, these videos leave the viewer feeling very odd indeed. An unsettling feeling that only grows stronger with the more videos you watch. And there's one other thing about the Jordan Long Show that I haven't as yet mentioned. Something that takes this situation from being just a bit strange to outright disturbing. Sometimes, throughout the course of these videos, as the man is just playing with his dolls, he's also, well, touching himself. And it's just as gross and disturbing as it sounds. Obviously, I cannot show you any of these clips, but just know the full and true context of these videos takes this channel from just another odd one to something much more sinister. No longer is it just some odd guy playing with dolls in his house. It's become something much, much worse. It's completely unknown who exactly this content is even meant to appeal to. After all, there's no target audience referenced, and no obvious purpose for these videos to even exist in the first place. What frightens me the most, though, is that because of his use of dolls, his videos might appeal mostly to the very most vulnerable among us, children. This is the kind of content that you would think YouTube would remove immediately. And yet, as of the making of this video, the channel remains up, with over a decade of steady uploads in its library, just waiting to be stumbled upon. This channel is yet another strange and frightening corner of the internet, one that leaves you with far more questions than answers, and with more concern than peace of mind.
Is interested in more than just a good meal. Listen, he's having no trouble.
Could you say it again?
He feller in the white.
On your screen.
Said earlier, Steve, I'm
It's simple for program on therapeutic.
This awful man.
The YouTube comment section can often be a fun, entertaining, and even hilarious place. The comment section could be a place where an entire community can form and come together to discuss just how much they all love a particular channel or video. It can be a place where memes are formed, hilarious memes that go on to spread all across the internet. However, just like with all aspects of the platform, it can also be a place where mysteries are born. Portishead is a trip-hop band from the United Kingdom that was first formed way back in the 1990s. Over the years, a handful of their music videos have gone fairly viral on YouTube, with one from 2016 receiving almost 40 million views. However, there is one particular music video of theirs that has gone on to become the subject of much speculation on both YouTube and Reddit. And not for the reasons that you might imagine either. The music video that I'm referencing is the one for a track titled Only You. Upon first glance, the video seems fairly consistent with the band's other uploads. So far, so normal. However, if you scroll far enough down in the comment section, you'll come across something a bit strange. Thousands upon thousands of comments have been left by someone with the username of DoWhat. Over the course of several months, beginning in December of the year 2018, this user left all of these strange comments on the Only You music video. Occasionally, DoWhat would even comment hundreds of times in a single day. And what's especially strange is that most of these comments appear to be nothing more than angry rants, seemingly directed at a single person, or sometimes even a group of people. On occasion, it even appears that he's partaking in a long, convoluted conversation with only himself. Now, a large chunk of these comments are far too explicit for me to display here, while others are just blatant non sequiturs. Most, however, are just downright strange. Let's take a look at a couple of them. One reads, "The spirit entered me all right. Yowza." Another says, "Yeah, heavy petting." Most of these comments, though, unlike the ones I just read, are very angry in tone. The poster's anger seems to be directed primarily at the band themselves. And the more you delve into this rabbit hole, the more you realize that Do What seems to be under the impression that the band has stolen from him. In this case, that they've stolen his ideas for music videos and even songs. Do What alleges that he's received no credit at all for all these brilliant ideas of his. In his own strange way, he appears to be alleging that the entirety of Portishead's success is due solely to him. It's been suggested by some that this is the primary reason the user chose this particular video to leave his absolute tirade of angry comments. As you can imagine, over the years, many other users have tried engaging with Do What, leading to some truly bizarre conversations. Within these convos, Do What claims that he's actually some kind of interdimensional being, with the ability to communicate with people on other timelines. Although the vast majority of Do What's comments are indecipherable nonsense, within a few they claim to be a female living in a local homeless shelter. Now, is this true? Well, just like everything else about the mysterious Do What, it's really hard to say. Due to the sheer volume of comments that they were leaving back in the years 2018 and 2019, some have claimed that the Do What account must be a bot. However, others have rightly pointed out that since Do What has edited quite a few of their comments over the years, they simply cannot be a bot. As truly insane as it seems, the vast majority of the evidence available seems to point to the fact that every single one of Do What's comments were left by a real living person. A person with far too much time on their hands, yes, but a person nonetheless. Other theories include the user possibly suffering from some type of extreme mental illness, or conversely that they're simply a troll, out looking for attention. And yet others have suggested that the whole Do What saga was nothing more than an ARG, designed by the band themselves to drum up attention for their music video. However, the first Do What comment appeared over 3 years after the music video was first posted, making this theory highly unlikely. After months and months of leaving these strange and aggressive comments, Do What's original account was eventually taken down. This would not be the end of the tale, however. Shortly after the original account was taken down, other accounts began appearing, posting the exact same kind of angry comments. To say that this was strange would be an understatement. However, these new accounts would only post a couple dozen times or so before going dark, making it highly unlikely that these were the same person. In all likelihood, they were just simply copycats, out to muddy the waters even further than they already are. Unfortunately, after all this time has passed, it isn't very likely that we'll ever receive a true answer to the mystery of Do What.
Take the remote unit from its handy storage space, and you're set for hours of pure pleasure. Enjoy your favorite programs, black and white or color. Turn the set on, select your channel,
Upon first look, the account that goes by user 9472 might just seem like yet another strange page on the internet. However, once you take a closer glance, it isn't long at all before you realize that there's something much more unnerving going on here. At first, some of these videos might come across as just another poor attempt to start an ARG, or alternate reality game, but the deeper you dive into the channel, the more bizarre the situation becomes. A few of the videos are no longer than 40 seconds, and filled to the brim with strange images and sounds. One of these videos, however, is especially unsettling. The video in question is played at an extremely high pitch, almost making it an all-out assault upon the viewer's senses. And yet, as bizarre as they are, these short videos are really only the tip of the iceberg. We've barely even dipped our toes into the deep well that is user 9472. The next video is where things start to get very strange. At this point, I think it's safe to say that this is obviously not just another ARG. This video gives me strong Uncanny Valley vibes. I mean, there's something just off about it. Something I can't quite put my finger on. Here is the video. And unfortunately, this video is just the beginning. As you scroll further down, things just get odder and odder, and even more outlandish. And some of these videos, despite their blatant strangeness, have achieved quite the view count, with one sitting at over 120,000 views. This video consists of a woman staring into the camera with a dead fish stuffed into her mouth. Truly Academy Award-worthy stuff here. It's hard to even put into words the sense of hopelessness that this channel leaves you with. But we're not finished with this story quite yet. Things are about to take an even darker turn. User 9472 recently deleted a video after an article was written in The Sun alleging some pretty disturbing things. This article was titled Death on Film, and it suggested that within user 9472's video there is shown an actual real human corpse. This is the video referenced in that article. Now, this video is fairly similar to the other uploads on the channel. However, in light of the Sun's accusations, the whole thing takes on a much more sinister tone. Just who is user 9472? Are these videos just yet another attempt to troll the online masses? Or is there something much more nefarious at work here? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Obviously, YouTube is a very vast and complicated platform, and these were only a small handful of the rabbit holes that exist upon it. And despite the title of this video, these three are very far from the darkest ones out there. So, if you happen to enjoy this video at all, then subscribe and join me as I attempt to document them all in an ongoing series. And I won't stop at just YouTube either. Throughout the entirety of the internet, scary and disturbing rabbit holes can be found almost everywhere. Now, I know I'm just one of the very, very many true crime and dark content channels out there. But I think that it's important to document and catalog all that we possibly can. So join me as we journey to the very darkest corners of the internet and attempt to shed light upon their mysteries. YouTube is one of the most vast platforms on the entire internet. As of the year 2024, over 51 million different YouTube channels exist, with 38 million of those being considered active. 37 million of these channels have at least 5 subscribers or more, while 29,000 of them have at least 1 million subs. The point of me rattling off all these numbers at you is to emphasize the sheer, unbelievable size of this platform. And within this vast universe, there exists a whole litany of deep, dark rabbit holes for us to explore. In the first entry to this series, we covered 3 different, disturbing stories. But to be honest, that barely even got our feet wet. There's still so much out there to discover, to experience. So get ready, buckle up, and let's dive back into the muck. YouTube is filled to the absolute brim with creators who one day dream of making it big, myself included. And if my current subscriber growth is any indication, then I should be hitting 100k subs sometime around the year of our Lord 2069 or so. YouTube also just happens to be one of the very most used platforms on the entire internet. Seriously, their user numbers read like Elon Musk's personal bank statements. And so, as you can probably imagine, within that limitless, vast sea of individuals, you're bound to come across a few bad apples on occasion. Once again, myself included. And Samantha Walford was one such rotten fruit. On the surface of it, Samantha came across as completely ordinary. Just another young woman who set out to utilize YouTube in order to help make her showbiz dreams come true. You see, more than anything else, Samantha longed for YouTube fame. However, her budding internet career wasn't her sole responsibility. Far from it, in fact. You see, Samantha was also the mother of 3 young children. From her residence in East Texas, she primarily created lifestyle vlogs, offering up personal glimpses of her everyday routine to her subscribers. However, considering the morbid events that were about to take place, it seems that Samantha may have found her life to be a little too routine. Almost constantly, the young woman would dream of getting out, of acquiring fame, of living a fast-paced, glamorous lifestyle. And unfortunately, at least in Samantha's mind, there was only one thing standing in the way of her accomplishing her dreams. Her partner and husband, Ernie. And Ernie didn't exactly fit into her idealized visions of her future. In reality, Samantha's life was a far cry from the glamorous, wholesome image that she portrayed on her channel. For his part, Ernie was a hard-working and loyal husband, as well as an especially devoted father. However, behind the scenes, the young couple's relationship had been crumbling around them for some time. Ernie, who was struggling to support the family of 5 on only his income, was growing increasingly frustrated with his wife's utter fixation upon internet fame. Unfortunately, it seemed that all too often her social media career was consistently pulling her away from her duties as both a mother and a partner, something that would inevitably lead to awful fights between the couple. As the unpleasantness between the young pair continued to escalate, Samantha began to look upon Ernie as less of a partner and more of a roadblock, of something standing in her way that needed to be overcome. In the month of February of the year 2015, Samantha began to formulate a nefarious plot, a plan to have her husband murdered. Samantha began to manipulate a group of her friends, 3 young men who trusted her, by convincing them that Ernie was an abusive and awful spouse. This was far from the truth, of course, but these 3 men didn't know that. Unfortunately, they took Samantha at her word. Through a series of carefully formulated text messages, Samantha began to paint herself as an innocent woman, a victim desperate to escape her husband's wrath. Tragically, the 3 men bought into her story, and together the group began to plan Ernie's abduction and eventual murder. On the evening of February 20th, 2015, Samantha's evil plan was put into action. At the couple's home, the 3 men ambushed Ernie and proceeded to beat him viciously. Following this attack, they then kidnapped their victim. Putting on quite the performance, Samantha phoned emergency services and informed them that 3 masked men had just broken in and abducted her husband. Despite playing the role of a shocked and grieving wife fairly well, it wasn't long before the authorities began to notice discrepancies in her story. As the investigation continued to unfold, it became clear to detectives that Samantha had played a much larger role in the crime than she'd first admitted. Unfortunately for the young woman, she'd left a very long and obvious trail of evidence behind, including text messages, emails, and of course the testimonies of her accomplices.
Samantha is the ringleader. Samantha is the one, and I can prove this.
All of this combined to reveal to investigators that Samantha had been the one behind the whole plot, pulling the strings all along. Ernie's body would be eventually found lying in a rural area, miles away from the home that he shared with Samantha. The young father had been brutally beaten, bound, and suffocated to death. Ernie's murder is truly the definition of a senseless killing. Done all so Samantha could have her freedom to pursue YouTube fame, something she likely never would have achieved anyway. I find it ironic that her desperate desire for fame eventually led to her everlasting infamy. In the year 2016, Samantha Wolford was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her legacy is one of manipulation and violence, and her story will forever remain as one of YouTube's darkest rabbit holes. YouTube is home to videos covering any possible subject that you can even imagine. Everything from wilderness survival tutorials to questionably edited videos about dark rabbit holes. However, if you dig just a little deeper below the surface, you're likely to stumble across some pretty disturbing content. And a great example of this is a channel known as May May. This channel boasts over 240 different videos in its library, all of which are focused on animals. Well, not all animals. In reality, just one in particular. Man's best friend, aka dogs. However, these videos are nothing like the other adorable fun videos of pets that you may have seen on this platform before. Both the videos in question and their thumbnails portray these animals in highly questionable situations that, to be honest, can be quite difficult to watch. It's honestly borderline shocking that this kind of content is even allowed on the platform at all. And meanwhile, I'm out here getting community guideline strikes left and right. What's really jaw-dropping, however, is just how many people are actually watching these awful videos. I mean, we're talking about a channel here with millions upon millions of views. And as of this writing, the channel boasts 16,000 subscribers, most of whom routinely interact with this foul content. Just like me, you're probably asking yourself, how in the world could this type of content ever become so popular? The thumbnails of these videos portray the animals in uncomfortable and even sexually suggestive positions. But smartly, it's always done in a carefully managed kind of way, where the channel owners can always fall back upon plausible deniability. However, the titles of these videos can actually be just as unnerving as their thumbnails. There's just something off about both their sentence structure and phrasing. Titles such as, quote, "Mother dog is find food," and quote, "Mom dog hungry food and want to eat," just don't sit especially well with me. And when you actually sit down, click on and view one of these videos, it becomes painfully obvious just how shameless and unethical they really are. We're talking textbook exploitation here, people. Throughout these videos, whoever is behind the camera all too often zooms in and focuses upon the animal's genitals, occasionally even going so far as to touch them. It's enough to make you gag. The videographer also really enjoys recording the animals whenever they happen to be cleaning themselves. I think you get the picture. I do need to point out, though, that ever since their channel has come to the attention of the broader YouTube community, it seems that whoever is running the channel has widely removed some of their more obviously exploitative videos. Now, you might be wondering who exactly this kind of content is even made for. Well, all it takes is a quick glance at the comments section to see that May has managed to build up a sizable audience of seemingly like-minded individuals. Over their time on the platform, they've managed to build up a modest but highly dedicated community around the type of content that most people would find to be extremely strange at best. And these people aren't just watching the videos either. They're fully engaged, often sharing and even commenting on these videos. Comments such as, quote, "Amazingly beautiful, she knows how to fuck all day long," gives you a pretty clear window into the psyche of some of these people. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, I'm afraid. After scrolling through the comments section, I was able to find a great number of sexually explicit comments. And remember now, these were all left on videos of animals. Despite how much we might wish otherwise, it's painfully obvious that there is indeed an audience out there actively searching for this kind of content. The channel even has entire playlists catered around these same sick themes. Now, as I mentioned before, when this channel first came to the attention of the wider YouTube community, the channel went dark, privatizing almost their whole catalog of videos overnight. And due to a few comments left on the remaining videos by the creator of the channel himself, it's fairly easy to discern why. It seems that after May came to attention, YouTube finally decided to take action and restrict them, stripping away the channel's ability to earn money. However, May is just one of these sick channels. Many others still exist out there. In fact, there's even a chance that the owner of the channel runs another channel almost exactly like it, except this time with cats. I'm not going to get into cat pew here, but from the evidence I've seen, I think it's fairly safe to say that this channel is run by the very same person. The point is, there's likely hundreds of these kind of channels out there, all profiting off the exploitation of animals. It's truly sickening stuff. So if you have a little furry baby of your own, hold them close tonight. Tell them you love them, because it's obvious that there's a ton of people out there who would wish them harm.
missing all of a sudden?
Been sharing this with us. There's nothing left to do.
Everybody stick around because we're going to have some fun.
In the year 2015, an extremely strange YouTube channel called 00390 was first created. Nothing at all was normal about this channel, not even its description. Written in both English and Italian, the text reads, quote, "Do not subscribe, you bother me. Do not offer me money for affiliation or other. I am not interested. At best, offer me some typical food of your country." And below this block of text, there lies an Italian phrase which roughly translates to, quote, "I like cold girls, but alive." As of the time of this writing, this strange channel boasts over 50,000 subscribers. Not too shabby, is it? The channel's owner has managed to accumulate all of these subs by consistently uploading some very strange and quite disturbing content. Everything from experimental art videos to recordings of women who are seemingly being held hostage or featured on the channel. Due to the unsettling nature of these uploads, over the years since the channel's creation, people all across the wider internet community have come together in an attempt to solve the mystery of this channel. This has resulted in some pretty outlandish theories being put forward. Despite how unlikely it really is, one of the most popular theories out there proposes the notion that the channel's owner is actually a serial kidnapper and murderer who travels the streets searching for potential victims. This would help explain all of the seemingly random videos featured on the channel that consist of someone filming women who appear to be completely unaware that they're being recorded at all. Truly creepy stuff. However, to this very day, there unfortunately is no actual consensus on the deeper meaning behind the channel, or if there even is one at all. Perhaps this is just another art project or poor ARG attempt, who knows? Or perhaps something much more sinister is going on here. We may never know the truth. Either way though, channel 00390 makes for a very dark and disturbing YouTube rabbit hole.
So what you do is you grab it around here. You grab it here and peel it back like that. Okay? Peel it back. Alright? And it'll pull off. It'll make a disgusting sound.
I'm sure you've heard of the 4 Dummies book series. Networking for Dummies, Finance for Dummies, even Italy for Dummies. But have you ever heard of 4 Morons, or more specifically, grave robbing for morons? Probably not, right? Well, don't worry, because today I'm going to tell you all about it. Way back in the year 2014, on August 8th, a user going by the name of Simon Prej uploaded a video to YouTube that was titled Grave Robbing for Morons. However, this video obviously wasn't created in 2014, clearly being a digital re-upload of a much older VHS tape, and the grainy footage was quite disturbing, to say the least. Within the video, a young man in a leather jacket explains every single aspect of the process of grave robbing, even going so far as to explain how to sell the remains on the black market. As you can imagine, ever since its initial upload, this video has been shrouded in mystery. Even to this very day, the identity of the man in the tape remains completely unknown. In the years since it was first uploaded, absolutely no one has come forward to claim responsibility for its creation. And as you can imagine, the mystery surrounding the video has led to the internet having many different opinions on it. Obviously, a large chunk of people believe that it is indeed authentic footage of an actual grave robber explaining his process, and it isn't hard to see why. On the whole, the video comes off as very authentic and convincing. Others, however, maintain that what we actually have here is an obscure horror short film. One thing that is impossible to deny, though, is the sheer age of the video. It's clearly very old. Posts about it on the internet can be found dating back to at least the year 2003, but it's likely much older than that. Judging both from the general aesthetics and items that can be seen on the tape in the background, it's likely that this video dates back to the late 80s or early 90s. Many different horror-related items can be seen in the video, such as old VHS tapes and magazines. This would seem to lend credence to the theory that whoever created this video was just a die-hard horror aficionado who set out to make something creepy. And to that goal, I'd say, well done. Mission accomplished. However, the human skull being so casually shown off in the video looks just a bit too convincing to be entirely fake. But it's towards the end of the video where things start to get really strange. At a certain point, the man on camera seems to almost mumble his full name out loud before catching himself at the very last moment.
Okay, this was made by Anthony. Well, as a matter of fact, let's forget the last name.
One interesting detail of the tape is that the man in it appears to suffer from a severe stutter. Now, it's possible that this condition was faked for some reason, but considering how genuine it feels, most people on the internet agree that it's a legitimate stutter. And you would think that between the severe stutter and the distinct appearance of the man on the tape, he'd be relatively easy to identify. But you would be wrong. Oh yes, the internet certainly has its theories, but a general consensus on the man's identity has so far eluded them. So what do you think? Is this really a tape showing an actual grave robber, or just another wannabe actor? Let me know down in the comments below. Worldwide, YouTube boasts 2.5 million active monthly users. To say that's nothing to sneeze at would be quite the understatement. However, most of these users never delve below the surface of the platform. To them, YouTube is just cute babies and funny animal videos. But we know better, don't we? Lurking just out of sight, where the regular user can't see, is a deep and disturbing underworld. Which brings us to this channel. Here we attempt to catalog all of this disturbing content for your twisted entertainment, whether it be true crime, dark rabbit holes, or everything in between. So if you're a fan of true crime or just darker content in general, then please stay tuned and subscribe to Cancel Happiness. Now let's get to it. In the year 1996, a satellite which was built by an American company called Space Systems Loral was being transported to China in order to be launched. This satellite was named Intelsat 708, and it contained sophisticated encryption technology. The Chinese and United States government had come to an agreement that the satellite would be launched into space from the Zhaicheng Satellite Launch Center. For this launch, they were utilizing China's Long March 3B launch vehicle, which at the time was one of the world's most powerful rockets. For some reason, the launch was broadcast live in the United States. On the 15th of February of the year 1996, just a little shy of 3 a.m., the satellite was finally launched, and no one had any idea about the tragedy that would then unfold. Only 2 seconds after its launch, the satellite began veering completely off course, and just moments later, the rocket smashed down to the Earth in a highly residential area. The force of the crash caused an explosion which was equivalent to 50 tons of TNT. Almost immediately, members of the company's security team were rushed to the disaster site, and this is where events began to get strange. Based on the testimony of multiple eyewitnesses, the Chinese military immediately roped off the scene, refusing to allow anyone to approach. Despite the huge swath of destruction caused by the crash, the Chinese government claimed that only 6 people had been killed, with 57 being injured. The United States government, however, viewed this low number with extreme skepticism. In their view, the Chinese military had cleaned up the crash site in order to hide the true toll on human life caused by the accident. And despite the sheer magnitude of this tragic event, it remains one of the least known space disasters in history, likely due to a Chinese cover-up. However, a recording of the event eventually did manage to make it to YouTube, garnering around 170,000 views. Within this video, you can clearly see the vast amount of destruction caused by the crash. Oddly though, at the very end of the video, things take a rather strange turn as the clip cuts to an American woman who is asking multiple choice questions of the viewer in order to prepare them for their trip to China. Here, see for yourself. It's certainly a vibe.
This is a picture of A, a city dweller, B, a Yi person, or C, a Hughes program manager.
This cheery multiple choice quiz sure presents quite the severe juxtaposition to the crash footage. Strange indeed. Unfortunately, the comments on the video are shut off, and so there's no real way to delve deeper into this mystery. But I still must thank the uploader for posting this video. After all, it's important that the world doesn't forget this tragic event in history.
Welcome to Let's Play Neverend, an RPG with some adventure game elements that I bought in like the 8th grade. I never completed it, and it's just been sitting in my house, taunting me ever since.
This might just seem like your average, normal, small YouTube channel. But hiding behind this facade of normalcy is a sinister secret. You see, this channel was owned by a young woman named Lindsay Savannah-Rath, and Lindsay was anything but normal. Born in rural Iowa, Lindsay always struggled to fit in. Her youth was spent mostly alone and friendless, being bullied on a regular basis by her peers. And so Lindsay, like so many others before her, turned to the internet in order to find a sense of community and belonging. On the 11th of July of the year 2012, Lindsay first created her YouTube channel. Her first 4 videos were of her favorite band, but it wouldn't be long before the young woman began uploading her first Let's Play series. Within this series, Lindsay played a video game titled Never End, and this would eventually span 18 separate episodes, lasting from the 26th of June to the 27th of September. Around this same time, Lindsay became an online moderator for a website called Twilight Sucks, going by the username of Blonde Guardian. It would seem that Lindsay had indeed found an online community to be a part of. However, her interest in far-right extremism and Nazism was growing drastically at this point, which ultimately led to her being banned from the website she so loved. Undeterred though, Lindsay simply took her radical beliefs to a new platform, this time being DeviantArt. Here she openly praised high-ranking members of the Ku Klux Klan, while simultaneously still complaining about her life at school. However, it would be on the website Tumblr where Lindsay truly found her home. Here she joined communities centered around tragic and awful events, such as notorious school shootings. In fact, she even ran her own page called School Shooter Chick. Here, she would upload images of herself alongside idolizing posts of mass shooters. Clearly, the young woman wasn't in the greatest headspace at the time. So, in an attempt to change her life and looking for a fresh start, Lindsay enrolled in a small art school. However, the majority of her life would remain relatively the same. While she wasn't really being bullied anymore, Lindsay remained an outsider. However, within these extremist communities she was a part of online, Lindsay would receive the praise and validation she was so desperately seeking, usually concerning her physical appearance. It was within this same period of time that Lindsay first met a young Canadian teenager named James Gamble. And unfortunately, James shared Lindsay's extreme beliefs, sporting a particular fascination with the Columbine school shooting. Together, these two were a disaster, serving to only radicalize themselves even further. Initially, their discussions were purely hypothetical, but it wouldn't be long before that changed. Alongside his friend from high school, Randall Shepard, James and Lindsay began formulating plans to attack the Halifax shopping center in Canada. The trio would choose Valentine's Day as the date for their heinous plan, in order to maximize the media attention surrounding the event. While James managed to get his hands on some weapons, Lindsay focused on other aspects of the attack, including their attire during the assault and the written manifesto that they would leave behind. Following this, Lindsay purchased herself a plane ticket to Canada. James, however, was beginning to get cold feet. As James was still struggling with his conscience, an anonymous tip was received by the authorities. This tip led detectives to finally investigate James's sordid online activity. Some have even speculated that James, overridden with guilt, sent in the tip himself. But tragically, we'll never know the truth. As the authorities were closing in, James made the choice to take his own life rather than face the consequences of his actions. Lindsay, however, was completely unaware of the demise of her partner in crime. Along with Randall, she was met at the Canadian airport by law enforcement and swiftly taken into custody. In November of the year 2016, Randall pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder and received a 7 to 10 year sentence, depending upon his behavior inside. Lindsay, meanwhile, had the whole book thrown at her. On the 20th of April of the year 2018, the young woman was sentenced to life in prison. As of the making of this video, Lindsay's channel remains up on YouTube. It serves as a stark reminder of what can happen when a lonely teenager stumbles into the wrong corners of the internet. So what do you think? Did Lindsay get what she deserved? Or was her sentence a little too harsh? After all, the only victim in the case was James himself, and by his own hand. But this question's a little above my pay grade, so I'll just let you all decide. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Well, that's a wrap on today's dive into YouTube's darkest rabbit holes. It's wild to think how much is hidden beneath the surface of this massive platform. With billions of videos uploaded and endless channels lurking in the shadows, we've only scratched the surface of the secrets that YouTube holds. But don't you worry, we're just getting started. There's so much more to uncover, and you know we'll be back to find it all. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the depths of YouTube's most bizarre corners. Who knows what we'll discover next? Until then, keep digging. On the 19th of March of the year 2022, a YouTube channel called The Experiment was first created. Now, this is a truly bizarre channel. Throughout the 3 years that they've been on the platform so far, they've only uploaded 6 separate videos. And none of these videos have a description, or even an explanation behind their creation. The audience is simply left to their own devices to fill in the gaps. Needless to say, you come away with far more questions than answers. So what exactly does the content featured on this channel consist of? Well, see for yourself. Within every single one of the videos featured on this channel, a person is shown lying on the floor of a dark room with their wrists bound and a bag over their head. Repeatedly, this person attempts to escape their predicament. On occasion, the person even manages to actually escape, or at least appears to. There's essentially no audio to be heard throughout any of these videos. Every once in a while, a seemingly disguised figure will enter the frame. Is this the person holding the victim hostage somewhere? Unfortunately, it's impossible to know what's really going on here with so little context provided. In all likelihood, this channel is nothing more than another ARG attempt, or at least something similar. However, there's no real way to know for sure, and within this sick world that we all live in, there's always a chance that everything we're seeing here is 100% genuine. Either way, though, there's no denying that the Experiment channel makes for a very dark YouTube rabbit hole.
We're about to witness the birth of a new world of darkness and evil.
How much time do you spend on YouTube? An hour a day? 2 hours? More? Whatever it is, there isn't enough hours in a full lifetime to watch all of the content uploaded to the platform in just a single month. Of course, most of this content is completely benign and inoffensive. However, there's a whole nother side to YouTube. A side that's not just cute kitty content or mukbang videos. A much darker side. And it is my goal on this channel to document all of it, for the enjoyment of other sick freaks like me. So buckle up, and let's once again dive back into the muck. In the year 2011, a man named Jacob Kokol from West Cornwall, England, started a YouTube channel called Whirlpool Hitman. Here he would upload footage of his experiences diving into literal whirlpools, as well as a handful of other extreme and dangerous activities, including cliff jumping and the exploration of local caverns. To say that Jacob was a bit of an adrenaline junkie would be an understatement. As of the creation of this video, Whirlpool Hitman boasts 146,000 subscribers, and certainly that's a number to be proud of. Jacob was well known in his local area, and was even becoming known throughout all of his native England as well. Several different times his profile and photos have been featured in various surfing magazines, as well as even making it into the pages of National Geographic itself. I think it's pretty safe to say that Jacob was living quite large. However, it was well known to his family and friends that the young man enjoyed pushing events to their very edge, arguably even going sometimes too far. Despite his love for caving and cliff jumping, the main draw of his YouTube channel could be found right there in its title, the whirlpools themselves. Within some of these videos, Jacob would toss various objects into these deadly vortexes and watch them as they were sucked under the churning surface of the water. However, the far more popular uploads on the channel consisted of Jacob himself diving into the frothing abyss. Obviously, this is an extremely dangerous and ill-advised activity to partake in. The current of some of these whirlpools is so strong that they can easily pull you under the surface in a matter of mere moments, and before you even know what hit you, it's already too late. On the 28th of May of the year 2013, a certain whirlpool that Jacob really wanted to try and swim in made its fateful return, and the young man was on a mission to capture this footage for his YouTube channel. That afternoon, Jacob showed up at his friend's home, a man named David Rains, and asked him to hold the camera and film as he dove into the whirlpool. In the past, the two men had worked together on video projects, and so David agreed to help. To make things a bit more comedic and visually interesting for his viewers, Jacob brought along a rubber horse mask for him to wear as he dove. To begin the video, while wearing the horse mask, Jacob floated around the far edge of the vortex, without allowing the strong current to pull him any further into its center. Jacob was known to tell his friends that swimming within a whirlpool was actually very similar to surfing, and that it was all about flowing along with the current. After filming for close to half an hour, David decided that they had sufficient footage, and attempted to persuade Jacob to leave with him. Jacob, however, was fully dedicated to pushing his limits. Instead of just calling it a day and going home, the young man instead grabbed his GoPro and decided to get a bit more footage under the water. And unfortunately, this fateful decision would end up costing him his life. After a few moments of Jacob submerged in the water, David began to worry, as Jacob still had not resurfaced. Tragically, just mere moments later, David would spot his friend's lifeless body floating face down in the water nearby. Instantly, a sinking feeling hit David's gut. From his vantage point, he could tell that it was clearly far too late. In March of the year 2014, Jacob's final video would be uploaded to his YouTube channel. At the tail end of this video, the haunting words, quote, "Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever," flashed across the screen. Truly wise words to try and live by. Jacob Kokel was only 28 years old when he tragically lost his life doing exactly what he loved most in this world. Being as popular and as admired as he was, Jacob's funeral was attended by far more people than the small local church could comfortably accommodate. A year following this tragic death, the harbor where Jacob lost his life was refurbished, and throughout this process, the whirlpool that had killed him was destroyed forever. And not to be too presumptuous here, but I believe I can speak for everyone watching this when I say, rest in peace to the brave young man known as Jacob Kokel, who lost his life that day. If you find yourself becoming morbidly curious, however, his YouTube channel, Whirlpool Hitman, still exists to this very day. And visiting it these days, after knowing the awful fate that befell its owner, makes for quite the dark YouTube rabbit hole. To the outside observer, Peter Keller appeared to be nothing more than your ordinary, run-of-the-mill, middle-aged family man. Together, he and his wife Lynette raised their 18-year-old daughter Kayleen. However, when Peter wasn't spending time with his family, he was known to disappear into a nearby forest for hours at a time. You see, within the depths of those towering trees, Peter was working on a project that he was also documenting in a series of video confessionals. And out there in that dark forest was the one single place that Peter could allow his true self to rise up to the surface. As all of this was taking place, the daughter Kayleen was set to begin college in the autumn. Kayleen also shared her father's love of recording, and she was known to document the various ins and outs of the family's everyday existence. For her part, the wife, Lynette, also ran her own YouTube channel, where she shared glimpses of all the arts and crafts she enjoyed creating around the house. So far, so normal.
Alright, so this is the rest of them. I know it doesn't really put that much in here, but believe me, I've cut up a lot of things.
However, it would soon be revealed that the family wasn't as ordinary as they first appeared. The cracks were there, and they were beginning to widen. Out in those woods, Peter had been creating his own private lair, which he dubbed Camp Keller. On a daily basis, it wasn't out of the ordinary for Peter to spend upwards of 10 hours working on this bizarre project. Unfortunately, the family wasn't very well off financially, but this fact didn't stop Peter from spending thousands and thousands of dollars on the construction of this so-called camp. And he would drop even more cash on a veritable arsenal of firearms as well. If you're a fan of true crime, then you know that this never bodes well.
Well, it's about 2 weeks before the end. This is going to be my last video, probably till after that.
In addition to these firearms, and of course all of the tools that he used to actually create the place, Peter also loaded his camp down with food and drink. And this entire structure, built out in the middle of nowhere, would be powered by a single generator. I have to admit, the construction itself was rather impressive for one man to create. The camp even featured its own wood-burning stove, complete with an actual chimney. However, this chimney would end up coming back to haunt Peter. But why exactly did Peter spend all this time, effort, and money creating this strange so-called camp in the first place? Well, this is where our story takes a dark turn. Peter's ultimate goal was to completely abandon society entirely. Peter would often love bomb his wife with various gifts in order to keep her from noticing just how much time he was spending outside of the home. On the 22nd of April of the year 2012, the truth behind Peter's bizarre activities would finally be revealed. On that day, the silence of the sleepy neighborhood would be shattered by an enormous explosion. Looking out of their windows, neighbors saw that the Keller family home was engulfed in flames. Firefighters quickly descended upon the home, completely unbeknownst of the real extent of the danger that they were stepping into. Following the extinguishing of the flames, the authorities quickly realized that Peter was nowhere to be found. The police soon learned that the family patriarch had recently withdrawn over $6,000 from the family bank account. Following this discovery, just a few hours later, investigators located Peter's vehicle, which was parked in the downtown area with the key still left in the ignition. However, this discovery, as useful as it was, still didn't provide them with any clues as to Peter's current whereabouts. Back within the destroyed home, police came across a hard drive that was chock full of the previously mentioned video confessionals that Peter enjoyed filming. And melted to the stove was an empty gas can, which police surmised was used to start the fire to begin with. And if that weren't sinister enough, the authorities also uncovered a homemade explosive device hidden within the home. Obviously, things could have gone much worse for the firefighters initially responding to the blaze than they did. However, this still wouldn't be the worst thing found within that home. Tragically, in the bedroom, 2 bodies were discovered. Somehow, these 2 remained completely untouched by the flames. Police surmised that Peter had set the fire in order to destroy evidence, but luckily something didn't go according to plan. The 2 bodies were identified, of course, as Peter's wife Lynette and their daughter Kayleen. Both of the victims had been shot in the head. Those previously mentioned videos Peter loved to film now provided insight into the mind of a murderer. As police combed over these videos, they began to realize that there were clues to Peter's current whereabouts sprinkled within. And so they began searching the forest, looking for any trace of the so-called Camp Keller. Luckily, by studying these videos and photos, investigators were able to recognize certain landmarks in the background and greatly narrow down the search area. As the investigation continued, SWAT officers began conducting a sweeping search of Rattlesnake Ridge trailhead, and it wouldn't be long before they came across a set of relatively fresh footprints. Smoke was also visible rising from Peter's homemade chimney. Even with all these clues, though, the area was still vast and very remote, and so the search took them a further 6 days. Eventually, however, they succeeded. After finally isolating the camp, SWAT teams broke out the tear gas. However, Peter refused to surrender and exit his bunker, and the authorities were very aware that he was most likely armed and extremely dangerous. The standoff persisted for a full 24 hours. In the end, the authorities decided that the best course of action would be to smash in directly through the ceiling in order to gain access to the shelter. Once finally inside, police discovered that Peter Keller had chosen to take his own life rather than face the consequences of his actions. The remaining cash that Peter had stored in his camp was eventually donated to a scholarship fund set up in the name of his wife and daughter. Peter Keller's video confessionals remain some of the darkest and most disturbing footage ever uploaded to YouTube.